Great players have played for great franchises over the many years in the NHL, so much so that EA Sports has created alumni teams for all franchises in the NHL, well, besides Seattle and Vegas because they're way too new, obviously. So today I'm going to be putting all 30 all-time teams back into the NHL, and I will simulate to see who has the best all-time team in NHL history. So the Oilers are obvious favorites with guys like Gretzky, McDavid, Draisaitl, Messier, Coffey, and Chris Pronger. Their goalie is going to be Grant Fuhr at an 89. A team like Colorado is going to have guys like McKinnon, Makar, Rantanen, Forsberg, Ray Bourque. I've also added a lot of new players back to these all-time teams, basically players that deserve to be on the all-time teams. I didn't just throw anybody on there. Like, obviously, McKinnon and Makar are going to be two of the greatest players in Colorado history. Pittsburgh Penguins are going to have guys like Mario Lemieux, Jaromir Jagr, Sidney Crosby, Paul Coffey, Evgeny Malkin. They're going to have the Flower in the net. Toronto will have guys like Matthews, Marner, Sundin, Nylander's on there as well. That might be a hot take, but I'm throwing them here. And they're going to have Johnny Bower in the net at a 92 overall. Now, some players are going to be duplicated in the league like Wayne Gretzky. He was on the Oilers, the LA Kings, and the Rangers, and also the St. Louis Blues, so he's on 4 different teams for the simulation. The Rangers are going to have guys like him, Messier, Brian Leetch, Ron Gilbert. In goal, they're going to have guys like Shesterkin and Henrik Lundqvist. I don't know how Igor is a higher overall than him, but we're just going to run with it. The New Jersey Devils are going to have Scott Niedermayer. I put Jack Hughes on there. I think he deserves it. I mean, he has the most points in a single season in New Jersey history, so I feel like he definitely deserves to be there. Brendan Shanahan's also there. Paul Stastny, actually Peter Stastny, my bad. Montreal is obviously stacked as well with guys like Maurice Richard, John Billiveau, Chris Chelios, Larry Robinson. Their starting goalie is going to be Patrick Waugh at a 96 overall and Jacques Plante at a 94. Detroit is going to have Mr. Hockey, Gordie Howe, Nick Lidstrom, Chris Chelios, Paul Coffey, Brett Hall, Luc Robitaille, Steve Yzerman, Marcel Dion. Detroit is a heavy favorite for sure. Their team is absolutely stacked, and they have Terry Sawchuk in the net at a 94. Mike Vernon is their backup at a 90. Calgary is going to get Jerome McGinley at a 90. Al McGinnis, Phil Housley, Theo Fleury. For Boston, I did add Pasta, Marchand, and Bergeron because I believe they all deserve to be here. They're also going to have Ray Bourque and Brad Park. Adam Oates is there. For goalies, they're going to have Andy Mogg at an 87, which is decent, I guess. Washington is going to get Alex Ovechkin at a 92. Sergei Gonchar, Larry Murphy, Mike Gartner, Adam Oates. The Vancouver Canucks are going to get Elias Pettersson and Quinn Hughes from their current team, as well as they're going to get the Sedin sisters back, Daniel and Henrik, both at an 89 overall. Alright, so now that you have an insight on the teams in the NHL, I'm going to simulate 5 seasons and see who goes on to win the Stanley Cup each year, and maybe, who knows, maybe we'll get some dynasties in there. Maybe one team will three-peat, maybe no team will repeat. Maybe we have 5 different Stanley Cup winners, who knows? But let's find out. So no surprise here, as the Red Wings finished first in the NHL, going 56, 23, and 3, followed by the Edmonton Oilers, the Pittsburgh Penguins, the Philadelphia Flyers, the St. Louis Blues, Chicago, Colorado, and LA. At the bottom of the NHL, it's the typical Columbus Blue Jackets, Seattle Kraken, Buffalo Sabres, Anaheim Ducks. I mean, I'm not very surprised with any teams that are here, really. Wayne Gretzky is going to lead the entire NHL in points with 115, followed by Brett Hall, the other Wayne Gretzky, the GOAT, Nathan MacKinnon, who had 99, Connor McDavid had 96, Jeremy Roenick, 92, Dale Hawerchuk had 91, Leon Draisaitl was up there with 90, Yari Curry. The LA Kings, Wayne Gretzky is going to have the most goals at 64, followed by Oilers, followed by Brett Hall, who had 56, the GOAT had 50, Brett Hall 48, Mario Lemieux 47, Ovi was up there 47, Cooch is up there. God damn, there's so many Wayne Gretzkys, it's going to get me way too confused. For defensemen, the Oilers, Paul Coffey is going to have the most points at 79, only 14 goals, but 65 assists. Followed by the Penguins, Paul Coffey with 71, Larry Robinson would have 68, Erik Karlsson 66, Ray Bourque 66, Phil Housley at 63, Sergei Gonchar, another Paul Coffey. For goalies, Terry Sawchuk's going to have the most wins with 47, followed by Grant Fuhr's 45, Patrick Waugh was up there with 41, Martin Brodeur had 37. For shutouts, Grant Fuhr had the most at 7, followed by Mike Vernon, Patrick Waugh again. And this is our year 1 playoff matchups. And in the Stanley Cup final, we we have the Red Wings versus the Dallas Stars. Obviously, Detroit was a big favorite coming into the year, but Dallas making the Stanley Cup final is actually very surprising. So let's find out who's going to take home the Stanley Cup in year number 1. And the Dallas Stars are actually going to pull off the upset, beating the Red Wings in 4 games in the Stanley Cup final. A clean sweep. I mean, I gotta be honest, I did not see this coming whatsoever. I thought the Red Wings had it 100%, but Dallas definitely pulled an upset here. But I mean, getting swept, Detroit, that is sad. Brett Hull is going to take home the Conn Smythe for the Dallas Stars, an absolute legend. And here comes the Dallas Stars captain, Mike Modano, coming to lift the Stanley Cup for the Dallas Stars. And in year number 1, the Stars have already won the Stanley Cup. Maybe there's many more to come, I don't know. They could create a dynasty, who knows? All I know is that I did not expect Dallas to be here, but they are here. They won the Stanley Cup, so congrats to them. They are our year number 1 Stanley Cup champions. Jason Robertson would have the most points for the playoffs with 33, followed by Mike Modano's 29, Gordie Howe had 27, Ted Lindsay had 27, Brett Hull 26, Steve Yzerman 26, Paul Coffey, Wayne Gretzky, Sidney Crosby. Wayne Gretzky is going to take home the Ted Lindsay, the Maurice Richard, the Art Ross, the Hart Trophy. Edmonton's Wayne Gretzky is going to take home 3 of the awards besides the Maurice Richard. That will go to the LA Kings Wayne Gretzky. Paul Coffey is going to take home the Norris. Marc-Andre Fleury is actually going to take home the Vezina. And Eric Lindros is actually going to take home the Selke. So at the end of year number 2, the Colorado Avalanche are going to finish first in the NHL, going 55, 22, and 5, followed by the Montreal Canadiens, the LA Kings, the Philadelphia Flyers, the St. Louis Blues, the Red Wings, New Jersey, and Tampa Bay. The Anaheim Ducks were the worst team in the NHL, going 25, 48, and 9, good enough for 59 points, followed by Carolina, Minnesota, Ottawa. Yeah, the usual are down at the bottom of the standings. McDavid is going to have the most points in the NHL with 120, followed by Brett Hull's 113, Wayne Gretzky had 111, St. Louis Blues. Edmonton Oilers, Wayne Gretzky had 108, Steven Stamkos had 100, another Wayne Gretzky, oh my god. Brett Hull had 96, Leon Draisaitl 94. For goals, Gretzky and Gretzky were tied for the most goals at 57. He followed by Brett Hull, Ovi, Brett Hull again, Mario Lemieux, David Pasternak, another Wayne Gretzky, Kucherov. Paul Coffey had the most points by a D-man with 86, followed by Paul Coffey. Dennis Potvin had 73, Phil Housley 70, Scott Niedermayer 70, Ray Bourque 65, Erik Karlsson was up there with 64, Roman Josi 63. God damn, Erik Karlsson was a minus 18. That is tough. Patrick Waugh would have the most wins by any goalie with 46, followed by Patty Waugh again with 43. Martin Brodeur had 40, Grant Fuhr 38, Marc-Andre Fleury 38. Meanwhile, he's doing this at an 86. Andrei Vasilevsky had 38, Terry Sawchuk 37, Mike Vernon was up there. For shutouts, Kirk McLean is going to have the most at 6. Actually, he was tied with Billy Smith for 6. Ed Belfour had 5, Sean Burke had 5, Martin Brodeur had 4, Vasi had 4. And this is our year 2 playoff matchups. We have the Battle of Alberta in round number 1. And in the Stanley Cup final, we have the St. Louis Blues versus the Pittsburgh Penguins. Wayne Gretzky versus Sidney Crosby, Mario Lemieux, Jaromir Jagr, you already know who's going to take home the Stanley Cup in year number 2. And the Pittsburgh Penguins are going to go on to win the Stanley Cup as they beat the St. Louis Blues in 5 games in the Stanley Cup final. Pretty much a domination, and if you look at the team's roster, Pittsburgh definitely has the better overall roster. Sidney Crosby is actually going to take home the Conn Smythe for the Pittsburgh Penguins. Sid the Kid, second greatest Pittsburgh Penguin of all time, probably. Over Jaromir Jagr, I'd say, maybe. I mean, that is a tough one, but Crosby has more cups than him, so maybe. And he's been there longer. And here comes the captain, Mario Lemieux, the man who saved the Pittsburgh Penguins franchise when he became the owner. And here he is lifting the Stanley Cup for them in year number 2 as they are Stanley Cup champions. They definitely have one of the better overall rosters, so I'm not surprised by this, but still, it is very impressive nonetheless. There it is. Sidney Crosby is going to get his turn with the Stanley Cup, the second most important man in the franchise's history, behind Super Mario Lemieux, Mario, same thing. Wayne Gretzky is going to have one of the greatest playoff runs of all time with 41 points and 18 goals in 27 games. Brett Hull is going to have 38, Brendan Shanahan 30, Peter Stastny 29, Crosby who had 15 goals and 28 points. That Conn Smythe is very well deserved. Mario Lemieux had 25, Dougie Gilmour 25, Malkin 23, Ovi 22. Connor McDavid is going to take home the Ted Lindsay, the Art Ross, and the Hart Trophy, while Wayne Gretzky is going to take home the Maurice Richard. Wait, so that means the Edmonton Oilers basically had a clean sweep on all the awards, including the Norris, as Paul Coffey is going to take that home as well. Patrick Waugh is going to win the Vezina, and Wayne Gretzky is going to take home the Selke. At the end of year number 3, the defending champs, are going to finish first in the NHL with a record of 57, 20, and 5, followed by the Edmonton Oilers, the Colorado Avalanche, the Dallas Stars, the LA Kings. Montreal was up there, St. Louis, and Detroit. At the bottom of the NHL, it was the Florida Panthers, the Anaheim Ducks, and the Columbus Blue Jackets. Not too many surprises here, other than the Islanders. They have a pretty good alumni team, and they finished 27th in the entire NHL. Connor McDavid is yet again going to have the most points in the NHL, this time with 132, followed by Wayne Gretzky's 124. The other Gretzky had 116. Jason Robertson had 114. Brett Hall, 109. Teemu Selanne, 104. Paul Coffey had 104. Elias Pettersson would actually have 39 goals and 101 points. Gretzky would have the most goals in the league with 66, followed by the other Gretzky, who had 62. Ovechkin had 58. Brett Hall, 56. Lemieux, 51. Patrick Kane was up there with 46. Brett Hall, 45. Matthews, 45. Obviously, Paul Coffey is going to lead all defensemen in points with 104, followed by Ray Bourque's 82. Oh my god, Ray Bourque had 30 goals as a defenseman. That is absolutely impressive. Followed by the other Paul Coffey, Larry Robinson at 72. Phil Housley, 69. Nice. Erik Karlsson, 67. Rod Blake, 66. Roman Josi was up there, 15 goals, 65 points. Patrick Waugh is yet again going to have the most wins by a goalie with 46, followed by Vasi's 40. Grant Fuhr had 40. Mike Vernon, 38. The other Grant Fuhr, 37. Terry Sawchuk, 37. Johnny Bower, 36. Kirk McLean was up there. For shutouts, Grant Fuhr had the most at 6, followed Patrick Waugh was up there with 4. Jacques Plante, 4. And this is our year 3 playoff matchups. We do have an original 6 matchup between Toronto and Detroit, and in the Stanley Cup final, we have the Colorado Avalanche versus the Pittsburgh Penguins. Pittsburgh is trying to go back-to-back, and Colorado is trying to get their first of the simulation. We have 2 absolute powerhouse alumni teams here. Who is going to take home the Stanley Cup in year number 3? And the Pittsburgh Penguins are back-to-back Stanley Cup champions as they beat the Colorado Avalanche in 5 games in the Stanley Cup final. I mean, that's 2 straight Stanley Cup finals that Pittsburgh absolutely dominated. I thought we were going to have a hard-fought 7-game series, but I guess I was wrong. Colorado was just no match for the Pittsburgh Penguins. And yet again, here comes the captain of Pittsburgh, Mario Lemieux, coming to lift the Stanley Cup for the 2nd time in the simulation, as the Pittsburgh Penguins go back-to-back just like they did in real life. They would go back-to-back twice in franchise history. They did it way back in the 90s with Lemieux and Jagr, and they did it in 2016-17 with Sidney Crosby and Evgeny Malkin. I mean, they are just allergic to going back-to-back, I guess. They are yet again Stanley Cup champions. The GOAT, Nathan MacKinnon, would have the most points for the playoffs with 32, also 15 goals, followed by Evgeny Malkin's 30. Lemieux had 17 goals and 26 points. Crosby had 25. Mark Recchi had 25. Teemu Selanne, 25. Mikko Rantanen, 21. Makar, 21. Connor McDavid is going to take home the Ted Lindsay, the Art Ross, and the Hart Trophy, while Wayne Gretzky is yet again going to take home the Maurice Richard. This time, it was the LA Kings Wayne Gretzky, not Edmonton. Paul Coffey would take home the Norris. Evgeny Malkin is actually going to take home the Conn Smythe. Grant Fuhr would win the Vezina, and Wayne Gretzky is yet again going to take home the Selke Trophy. At the end of year number 4, the Colorado Avalanche are going to finish first in the entire NHL, going 56, 17, and 9, followed by the Montreal Canadiens, the Pittsburgh Penguins, the Edmonton Oilers, the LA Kings, the New York Rangers. Vancouver was up there, and Buffalo. The Columbus Blue Jackets were the worst team in the NHL with only 56 points, going 24, 50, and 8, followed by the Minnesota Wild, the Nashville Predators. Ottawa was down there. Wayne Gretzky is going to have the most goals with 68 and points with 115 in the entire NHL. The LA Kings won. Oh my god, it was Wayne Gretzky, then Wayne Gretzky, and Wayne Gretzky. The top 3 scoring race in the NHL, followed by Luc Robitaille, who had 101. Brett Hall had 101. Connor McDavid had 100. Ovi, 98. He will also have 60 goals. Brett Hall, 96. The other Gretzky, 95. For goals, Ovi was kind of close to Gretzky. I mean, 8 off is not exactly close. Followed by the other Wayne Gretzky with 58. Cooch was up there with 55. Brett Hall, 49. Mario Lemieux, 48. Patrick Kane was up there with 46. For defenseman, Paul Coffey yet again has the most points with 81, followed by the other Paul Coffey. Ray Bourque was up there. Larry Robinson, 69. Phil Housley again. They both had 68. Dennis Boffin had 67. Roman Josi, 65. Oh my god, he was a minus 21. For goalies, yet again, Patrick Waugh had the most wins, this time with 42, followed by Mike Vernon's 41. The other Patty Waugh had 40. Marc-Andre Fleury would have 40. Grant Fuhr was up there. Igor Shesterkin have not heard from you, buddy, but you had 38 wins this year. That is very impressive. For shutouts, Johnny Bauer is going to have the most at 7, followed by Mike Vernon. Glenn Hall was up there, Patrick Waugh, Fleury, Robin Lehner. And this is our year 4 playoff matchups. We have Montreal and Boston in round number 1, an original 6 matchup. And of course, we have the Battle of Alberta in the West between the Edmonton Oilers and the Calgary Flames. And we have the Stanley Cup final matchup of the century between the Edmonton Oilers and the Pittsburgh Penguins. Gretzky versus Lemieux, McDavid versus Crosby, Leon Draisaitl versus Malkin. I mean, this is an all-time Stanley Cup final matchup. And the Pittsburgh Penguins are going to end up three-peating as they beat the Oilers in 4 games in the Stanley Cup final. A clean sweep, absolute domination. They've only lost 2 games in 3 straight seasons in the Stanley Cup final. I mean, Pittsburgh is the greatest team of all time, I guess. Marc-Andre Fleury is actually going to take home the Conn Smythe Trophy for the Pittsburgh Penguins. And yet again, here comes Mario Lemieux coming to collect the Stanley Cup for the 3rd time in 3 years for the Pittsburgh Penguins, as they are back-to-back-to-back Stanley Cup champions, three-peating in the simulation. And I mean, I guess there's no debate now. The Pittsburgh Penguins just have the best alumni team of all time. I mean, it's not that surprising when you look at the roster and you see guys like Fleury, Letang, Lemieux, Crosby, Jagr. I mean, they are absolutely loaded on paper, so I'm not that surprised. But wow, congrats to Pittsburgh for 3 straight Stanley Cups. Evgeny Malkin is actually going to have the most points for the playoffs with 28, followed by Mario Lemieux's 27, Paul Coffey had 27, Wayne Gretzky had 25, 18 goals, Leon Draisaitl 21, Jari Kurri had 20, Messier had 20, Gretzky 19, and Yzerman 19. Wayne Gretzky is the greatest player of all time. Paul Coffey with another Norris Trophy. Marc-Andre Fleury is actually going to take home the Vezina, and Gretzky will also take home the Selke Trophy. At the end of the 5th and final season, the Colorado Avalanche are going to finish first in the entire NHL, going 60, 19, and 3, followed by the Red Wings, the Edmonton Oilers, the Montreal Canadiens, the Pittsburgh Penguins, Los Angeles was up there, Dallas, Toronto, Columbus, Seattle, Minnesota were all at the bottom of the league. St. Louis's Wayne Gretzky is actually going to lead the entire NHL in points with 114, followed by Brett Hall, who had 105, the other Wayne Gretzky 104, Cooch had 101, Brett Hall had 100. On the Dallas Stars, Steve Yzerman 98, Ovi had 96, Lemieux had 95 and 50 goals, followed by Jason Robertson, who had 94. The greatest goal scorer of all time would lead the NHL in goals, as Alex Ovechkin had 57, followed by Wayne Gretzky, who had 56, Cooch had 55, the other Gretzky 53, Brett Hall 51, Lemieux had 50, Mikko Rantanen was up there with 45. For defensemen, we already know Paul Coffey had the most, this time with 84, followed by Brian Leetch's 74, Cale Makar has 73, Dennis Potvin had 71, Paul Coffey 66, Ray Bourque 63, Terry Sawchuk would have the most wins by any goalie, 48, followed by Patrick Waugh 46, and Johnny Bowers 42. And this is our year 5 playoff matchups. Is Pittsburgh going to go on and win 4 straight Stanley Cups, or is a new team going to dethrone them for the 5th and final Stanley Cup of the simulation? And in the Stanley Cup final, we have the Vancouver Canucks versus the Pittsburgh Penguins. Pittsburgh is trying to get their 4th straight Stanley Cup of the simulation, and Vancouver, well, they're still trying to get their first. Who's going to win the Stanley Cup in year number 5? And the Vancouver Canucks are actually going to pull off the upset, beating the Pittsburgh Penguins in 6 games in the Stanley Cup final. I mean, I guess the Pittsburgh Penguins were just absolutely gassed. 4 straight Stanley Cup final appearances will definitely do that to you, as Vancouver is actually going to pull the upset off and beat the Pittsburgh Penguins, the absolute juggernaut that were the Penguins. Daniel Sedin is going to take home the Conn Smythe for the Vancouver Canucks, one half of the Sedin sisters. And here's the captain for the Vancouver Canucks, lifting the Stanley Cup for the first time in franchise history and the first time in the simulation. I believe that is Trevor Linden, but I'm not exactly sure. I mean, somehow Vancouver dethroned Pittsburgh after they won 3 straight Stanley Cup finals. I have no idea how they did it, but they did do it, so congrats to them winning their first Stanley Cup in the simulation and in franchise history, of course. Lemieux would have the most points in the playoffs with 32. He also had 17 goals, followed by Jaromir Jagr's 24, Elias Pettersson, Henrik Sedin, Tyler Bertuzzi had 23, Todd Bertuzzi, my bad, Daniel Sedin 22, Evgeny Malkin. Wayne Gretzky is going to take home the Ted Lindsay, the Art Ross, and the Hart Trophy, while Ovi, he's going to take home the Maurice Richard. Paul Coffey, the best defenseman of all time, and Stevie Y is going to take home the Selke Trophy. And that is going to do it for this video, boys. If you enjoyed the video, make sure you leave a like and subscribe to the channel. Thank you all for watching, and until next time, don't be silly, wrap your willy.